All right, let's just jump right in. We're about to tackle one of the absolute biggest questions you can possibly ask. It's a question that gets right to the core of what it means to be you, to be a mind, to be, well, conscious. And what if a totally new way of thinking could finally give us a real path to an answer?
Just think about what's happening in your head right now. You're watching this, sure, but you know you're watching it. There's an inner experience happening. You can even take a mental step back and watch yourself watching. There is a you in there somewhere that knows what's going on.
You know, a rock is a physical object in the world. A thermostat processes information, it checks the temperature and turns on the heat. But neither of them knows it. They don't have that inner world, that self-awareness. So what is it about that lump of matter between your ears that allows for this incredible, frankly bizarre ability?
This is not a new question, not by a long shot. This is the kind of thing that has kept philosophers and scientists up at night for thousands of years. How does a bunch of physical stuff, atoms and molecules just following the laws of physics, somehow give rise to this rich, subjective, self-aware experience we call the mind? This question is so big, so profound, that it actually has a special name in the fields of science and philosophy. It's the ultimate mystery.
I mean, think about it. We can look at the brain as this unbelievably complex biological computer, right? It's taking in signals, it's storing memories, it's calculating what to do next. But the real puzzle is, why does all that calculation feel like anything from the inside? Why isn't it all just information processing happening in the dark? And the philosopher David Chalmers famously gave this a name. He called it the hard problem of consciousness. He really separated the, easy problems, like how does the brain tell the difference between a cat and a dog, from this truly monumental puzzle of why we have subjective experience at all. So if we're going to understand a potential new solution, we first have to appreciate why all the past attempts have, well, they've fallen short. The history of trying to explain the mind is kind of a graveyard of big ideas. But here's the thing. Every one of those failures left behind really important clues. For a long time, we've basically hit three major walls. First, there was pure materialism, which just said, the mind is what the brain does. And that's true. It correctly tied the mind to the physical brain, but it completely dodged the hard problem of why it feels like something. Then we got computational functionalism, the whole mind as software idea. Super powerful, but it led to AI that can play chess but has zero genuine understanding or self-awareness. And finally, and maybe most importantly, we had a failure of integration. You had neuroscientists over here, computer scientists over there, philosophers in their own corner, all making progress on little pieces of the puzzle, but nobody could fit them together. And that right there is the key. A new theory can't just be another idea in another silo. It has to be a synthesis. It has to be something that can take the bits of truth from all those past attempts and weave them together into one simple, coherent story. And that brings us to the framework we're going to be exploring. It's called frequency-governed self-graph reasoning, or Fgsgr for short. Yeah, I know, that's a mouthful. But the word I want you to focus on right now is unifies. This is a serious attempt to build that bridge between all those different fields, to finally create a common language we can all use to talk about the mind. Now, don't worry, we are not going to dive into all of this today, but this just gives you a sense of how big this synthesis really is. It's pulling together ideas about how the brain is a prediction machine, the deep mathematics of how we make sense of the world, the role of brainwaves, and the most crucial piece of all, the idea of self-modeling. And this is the core argument. The idea that your mind has a model of itself, that it can think about its own thinking, that's not just some cool feature that got bolted on at the end of evolution. The Fgsgr framework says that this ability for self-reference, this is the fundamental organizing principle of the entire system. So, how in the world do you even begin to think about a system that models itself? Well, lucky for us, there's this amazing metaphor that really helps capture this totally mind-bending idea. The cognitive scientist Douglas Hofstadter called it a strange loop. Think of a video camera pointing at the TV screen that's showing its own feed. You get that weird infinite tunnel effect, right? That's a strange loop. It's when a system loops back and starts representing itself. The proposal here is that your mind is a strange loop. It builds a model of the world, but since the mind is part of the world, eventually the model has to start modeling itself. So as we go forward in this series, we're actually going to unpack how this strange loop could be physically built in the brain. We're going to look at the proposed mechanics, the brain rhythms, these things called graph structures, and the math that might allow a physical system to literally turn its gaze inward upon itself. So let's end this exactly where we started. that thing you're doing right now, thinking about the fact that you're thinking, that's the loop. That's it in action. You are a system that models itself modeling itself. And according to this new framework, that isn't just a clever party trick of the mind. It is the very essence of what you are. And once you really start to get a handle on that idea, it changes everything.